I started coming down here in 1983, that being when I bought it from Unc and Hank, but I was aware of it before that when I used to teach windsurfing at the other end of the beach, some 4 years before then. It was a boat shed where Unc didn't run it. Unc couldn't run anything. Hank ran it, and his partners were Unc and Fid, a guy called Alan Armstrong, whose nickname was Fid, it being a rope splicing implement. So the three of them owned it, and it was a boat hire place, but they also hired windsurfers and catamarans. And Unc in those days was, amongst other things, a windsurfing instructor, which is another story. There's a thousand special memories. The one of Unc teaching back in those days is a special memory, a very humorous one. I think the special memories really are to do with a combination of all my family members having worked here. My former wife, Belle, Luke, Sarah, Ned, and of course in more recent days, Kay, Emma and Sam. So the memories are all to do with them. The characters that this shed has attracted over the years, the likes of Unc, Hank, Basil, and I think the fact that it's so steeped in history. Well, when we first bought the shed, it was decrepit. Unc refused to paint it. For that reason, he'd had running battles with the local council, all of which is another story. And having bought the shed, or just before I did, I got a good friend by the name of Dave Bradley down, who's a builder, and asked him to have a look at it with a view to letting me know how long it might stand for. And his considered opinion at the time was not very long, and that was 23 years ago. So it still stands, which is a testimony to, I think, its very appropriate siting and Dave's ability to continually maintain it. I think the factors that I mentioned, the special people, which includes family and characters, customers as well, and the history of it. I mean, it's called or classified as a building of local historical interest. I guess it's the bottom rung of the National Trust hierarchy. So it's to do with all those sorts of things. I think it has to have, and not just for the reason that it's classified in the way I mentioned, but also this area here with the boat sheds either side is termed by the council as being the boat shed precinct, without knowing exactly what they had in mind in using those two words. I can understand that they see it as being of historical significance. Well, I know there's a study being done by a consultant, and I was interviewed by the guy last week from the consultancy to do with exactly what Bayside should, or how they should best treat the area down here. So who knows what might come out of that, but then again, I've had interviews with 3 other consultants, I think, over the last 10 years, and what came out of that was absolutely nothing, but all strength to Nick. In terms of my own view, I would say no doubt that I'd like to see it remain as it is, to not change the ambience, not tinker with the historical attributes that it possesses, to maintain that constant flow of interesting people, characters, eccentrics, many of them are, that seem to, for whatever reason, and maybe I've touched on some of them, gravitate to this very, very special place. I mean, ostensibly it's a kiosk come cafe come windsurfing school, but really you get far more than a cup of coffee when you come here. You get far more than a windsurfing lesson. I think people are aware that they do get more and that they're actually sharing in, let's call it, a very holistic experience. And all we charge them is for the cup of coffee and the lesson. So I'm sure they get a considerable bonus out of their experience down here. Well, it'll have to change if Dave Bradley can no longer keep the building erect. But I think the fact that the shed has been here for nigh on 100 years and really hasn't changed physically in a significant way, nor has the area changed in a significant way. Now, sure, the boats that used to be moored out the front of the shed are gone. The boats that Unc and Hank used to hire from here are gone. But that's just superficial changes. But the core of things that remain have just been able to transcend time, and that's the essence of the place. I used to rent and teach windsurfing at the other end of the beach in competition with Unc. And they were certainly funny days in as much as Unc can be antagonistic, not so much competitive if being competitive involves hard work, but he did rise to the occasion to the extent that when I used to trundle past the shed here on the way to my windsurfing site, I'd look out for tacks and nails sprinkled on the track because it wouldn't be beyond Unc to do that. But really the only reception we got was his finger as we went past. But Unc did then take on the role of windsurfing instructor in competition with us. And one of the funny moments was we're sitting on the beach watching Unc give a lesson, and Unc's got his 7mm thick diving or frogman suit on a very hot February day. He's going through all the basics to teach this student how to windsurf, and in fact in doing so was on the board himself with a student watching, and was doing everything possible to propel the windsurfer. From where we sat, we could see the fact that there was no way ever he'd get going because the board was high and dry. It was actually pivoting on the centreboard. So no matter how hard Unc tried, the board just was motionless the whole time. But nevertheless, as I understand it, the student paid the full price for the lesson from Unc.